All right, folks, we're here on the Sports Talk Nation here on YouTube. My folks, Michael Cohen here with you. And we got a big show for you today as we continue our spring training tour, as we are going to talk some Chicago baseball. We got the Chicago Cubs and a great guest for you today, of course, the one and only Robert Villarreal of Baseball Central. He joins us today to talk about his Chicago Cubs. So, Rob, how you doing, man? It's been a while. Thank goodness we got some baseball coming up in a couple of weeks.
Well, Mike, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure talking to you again, and I couldn't agree more. That nice little, it's nice to kind of cleanse your palate, and really just get excited for the sport again, but it hurts. I think it hurts more for me, especially. I mean, I don't know about, you out there in the East Coast. Like I root for the Bears, and it's hard to watch, and then I got to root for the Blackhawks, and it's even harder to watch. I really need some solid sports in my life, and just got to wait for that Cubs baseball to come back around. So yeah, I'm happy spring training this year. The season is not far off.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, we had a football season with two teams that won a combined 8 games. That's not good. The Knicks are terrible. The Nets are terrible. The Devils are doing okay, but really no one, for whatever reason, hockey just doesn't explode here in New York. I just don't understand why. It does when teams are in the playoffs, but when you're in regular season, people are like, I don't care. So, basketball isn't doing well. Football didn't do very well this year. So it's like, please, let's bring on some baseball already.
That's true. I should say, I don't know if you're old enough. I mean, the Rangers had a pretty good team once upon a time with Mickey and Gretzky and Robitaille. They had some good teams. Van Beesbrook. Mm-hmm. So, they had some good hockey. But, you're right. It's been, at least 20, 25 years since those guys were on a team together. So.
Mm-hmm. It's been a long time since 1994. That's all the Ranger fans talk about. I'm not a Ranger fan, but I'm like, 1994, let's go back. Like, no, let's not go back. Let's jump in the time machine to 1990. Like we have a network here, MSG Network, right? And they broadcast everything Knicks, everything Rangers, and they'll take the Devils feed and the Islanders feed, I guess, every once in a while. But it's mostly Knicks and Rangers. It's like, let's have another flashback of the greatest games of 1994. It's like Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals against Vancouver for the 535th time. Oh, stop it.
See, that's funny too, because that's something that we got to deal with. Mm-hmm. In Chicago too, obviously. I think pretty much anywhere you go, you're going to hear about something like that.
Yeah.
Especially if you've already had an occurrence of historical significance. Obviously, with the Cubs, it was always, 100 years, 102 years, 105 years, 108 years since the last championship. Always, every single time. By the way, this is the tally. Or for the Bears, it's just, there's a radio station, the main Chicago radio station, 70 Score. They'll put like over-unders on Friday for like all the odd things, like, this guy's broadcasting. He always says this. We'll set the over-under on 3.5. How many times he's going to say this? And, every time it's like when it's the Bears playing the Pats or something like that, it's always something like, what's the over-under on how many times they mention the 85 Bears or, something of that nature. Yeah, I'm familiar, and it drives me crazy. But it doesn't drive me crazy? Baseball.
No, exactly. And right now, the Cubs coming into the season, had a bit of a down year last year. It was kind of a weird regular season. They did get back to the playoffs, got to the LCS, lost to the Dodgers, and now this year trying to regroup. And to me, going in, we'll talk about the guys on the offensive side here in a minute, but to me the biggest headline, Rob, for the Cubs going in, what is this team, can this team continue to succeed without its true ace there? And that was, of course, Jake Arrietta. I look at the depth chart on like the on the starting rotation, and you automatically you're looking for Arrietta, and then like, oh wait, he's not there anymore. Of course, now in Philadelphia, it's now Darvish, who comes over from L.A. You still got Lester there, you still got Quintanilla there. But that's going to be a big storyline, and who's going to close for this team? With Wade Davis now in Colorado. So those to me are the two biggest headlines coming into the season right now for the Cubbies.
That is very true, and I got to say, although I was hoping for a lot of pitchers to get signed, I am more than ecstatic. Not even as a Cubs fan. Obviously as a Cubs fan, but more someone looking from the outside in and trying to look at everything very even keel as a writer would. Just excited to get to see Darvish pitch in person in Chicago. It's just going to be a fantastic thing. It's a great pickup. And although I did want some other players back, I think that, when it comes down to it, the best guy out there was Darvish. He's the best pickup, and I couldn't be happier, really. I mean, he's worth every penny. I mean, he was better than any other pitcher on the market, and I couldn't, I can't put into words the elation that I felt when, I didn't believe it. Like, no, I got to go home and read it. I get a text on my phone. I'm like, no, someone at my score app is screwing with me or something of that nature. But I'm thoroughly excited. Although I'm going to be honest with you, I've never seen him bat. So I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm looking forward to, catching some at bats and seeing how he can hit, but I'm not as worried about that. So, I mean, a lot of guys, he's not there to hit, he's there to pitch, and I think that it's going to be fantastic. But if I can make a correction, at least in my own opinion, although the aforementioned pitcher that, went to Philadelphia, he, won the Cy Young a couple of years ago. I really believe that John Lester was the ace last year anyways, if you want to say it. And I always have a hard time saying that. Yeah. Because I don't like putting that kind of label on pitchers. Like, oh, this guy's an ace and this guy's an ace. No, he's a starter, things like that. And yet, just because he's, your best guy, maybe he's not always an ace. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think on some teams he could. Like, Darvish could be considered an ace on some squads, but odds are, I mean, he's going to pitch third in the rotation here. I mean, he's a good guy. He's a shutdown guy, but, John Lester is going to be the man, the top guy. So, and also happy for Kyle Hendricks getting his shot in the number 2 slot, I believe.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're 100% right, because, even when the Cubs are going well the last couple of years, and when they won World Series, and even the year before when they got to the LCS and lost, they really wasn't a true number 1. It was like a bunch of 1As. It was like Arrietta and Lester, and that's really what it is for the last 3 years here. And you had the wily veteran there in Lester. You had I wouldn't say the young gun there, but the guy who's going to light up the radar gun there in Arrietta. Yeah, these two big guys that start at the top of your rotation. You had a guy like Lackey in the back end. You had Hendricks, obviously. So you had a good group of starting pitchers, and I think that's one thing that separates the really good teams from the mediocre teams and obviously the bad teams, is that if you have a collection of good starters, and not just good starters, but good starters that can stay healthy, where you really don't have a true ace by its definition. You have a bunch of guys that can all get the job done, and maybe have a couple of aces. Maybe you have an ace, one and 1A. That's not a bad problem to have. And yeah, I think the Cubs will miss Arrieta's toughness. Certainly with Darvish, it's a new personality. It's a new face in the locker room. It's a new face in the top of the rotation. But like you mentioned, the guy still has really, really good numbers, and he has some nasty stuff. I mean, it's going to be a good addition. I think, I know Chicago is a pressure cooker city, just a little bit like LA is, but I think he'll settle in well. I mean, the Cubs fans are some of the best fans on the planet Earth, maybe the best fans on the planet Earth. I think he'll do well. I think having a guy like Lester to kind of lean on a little bit as well, to have John Madden there as well, I think he'll do fine. I think he'll settle in just fine in Chicago.
He really will, and I think the better part about the Cubs' current rotation, looking at Lester, Hendricks, Darvish, Chatwood, Quintana, possibly throwing in guys like Montgomery and Butler, is that these are all guys who can go long. Yeah. And that's always an issue, because it's, in Major League Baseball, it's you're either good enough to start, good enough to close, or you're just not. You're not, no one ever goes into baseball saying, I really want to be a reliever. You know, that's my whole goal, is to be a middle reliever. No, if you're a reliever, I mean, you're not good enough to start, you're not good enough to close.
Mm-hmm.
But the best part, and the hardest part about last year, was that the Cubs had really bad luck on the relief pitching side, but they also had some injuries when it came to some of the starters, and then some of the guys they like Lester or even Hendricks at times, whatnot, they just weren't going the distance. But when you look at guys like Hendricks, like Darvish, like Quintana, they can just eke innings, and that's the best part, is that they're going to keep you in it, and they, just like anyone else, they're human. They're going to give up home runs. You're going to give up runs. But if you can eat up innings and rest your bullpen and let guys like Carl Edwards or Pedro Strop get in there when they have to, a little more rarely, and really bring the fire, I think that's really going to help the club along immensely as far as pitching health and keeping them fresh. Because I mean, as you know, it's not a sprint. You really kind of got to measure yourself and pace yourself for the entire season, because you got a month of spring training, you got 4 months of the season. It adds up, and then hopefully postseason as well. But when you mentioned closing, the Cubs are looking at Branden Morrow right now, another guy they got from L.A. He doesn't have a lot of experience closing. He's got a couple closes. He's got a lot of holds, but they think that he can bring that kind of stuff. He was a starter that's just kind of become a reliever over time. But I think that they're first going to throw Morrow out there, but they've still got guys who can try and get in there as well and work to close them, whether it's Dinsing or Edwards or Strop or Alvarez. I think, even though they say it's going to be Morrow, I'd like to see one closer, but at the same time, I've never been one to say it can't be a closer by committee. I've never been that huge on, no, it's got to be one guy. It's got to be one guy. They have to put this guy in the ninth. I mean, that's great if they do. That's fine. And you want your, the last guy in to be that dependable, and he's going to bring it. He's got 2 outs or 4 outs or whatever he's going to have to do, and you hope above hope that he's going to be lights out. And I really hope that Morrow is that guy. And if he does, fantastic. But I think that the Cubs have enough arms in the bullpen that, as long as, like I said, the starters can go the distance, put in those 6 to 7 1/3 innings, hopefully per game for the most part, to keep those other arms fresh, and then they can all come in that late relief role, that closer role, and make a bigger difference.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, the one thing about Morrow is that worries me is that he doesn't have hard stuff. He has a lot of soft stuff, and at age 33 now,
Yep.
He's not going to top. He's not going to blow out the radar running. He's not going to top over 90, 91 miles an hour. So, he's got to be a little crafty. That's something that we don't usually see from closers. But when you consider that here was a guy who really figured it out last year, going from being a starter who couldn't stay in rotation in Toronto to figuring it out in LA last year, had an ERA under 1, had an ERA, just at 2.06, had a whip under 1, I should say. But still, great stuff, great numbers. It's just that when you go into the closers roles, it's just like a different kind of mentality, like the buck is going to stop right here. I am the man, and now I'm going to take over this. I'm taking over the show. So I just would love to know, and you and I can't answer this. Only Branden Morrow can answer this. Does he have the mentality to go out there and say, I'm here to shut the door down. This game is over, and that's just the mentality that a closer has to have, and that's what we see from like a guy like a Wade Davis. You want me to go back to the best to do it, like Mariano Rivera or Trevor Hoffman. The great closers, the good closers, all have that mentality of, I'm coming in to shut this door down. As soon as my foot touches the warning track from the bullpen, this game's over. And that's the mentality that I would hope for Chicago's standpoint that Morrow has. If not, then, like you said, it's going to have to be closer by committee. Or maybe they go out and get somebody like a Greg Holland who's still out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And he wasn't a perennial closer, but one of my more favorites as a Cubs fan in the early to mid-'90s was Rod Beck.
I remember him. He was a jerk.
And he was one of those guys that, he didn't have a place. He actually lived in a trailer.
Oh my
right
God.
by the park, and he would walk out of the trailer when it was time, and he'd walk to the stadium with a beer in hand. And that was his workout. The 40-ounce pearls.
Dude, the
He
dude's
just got it because he didn't care. He didn't have to hit. He didn't have to run. He just had to go up there and pitch the ninth inning. But he went in there with the absolute mentality that, and like I said, everyone's going to get hit. It just happens.
right.
Doesn't even Rivera, like you said. For my money, the best closer I've ever seen in my life, and probably
Right.
the best I'll ever see. But even he gave up home runs. It happens. Even he blows a save just like Rod Beck did. But the similarity, and is Rod Beck more? Absolutely not. Is Morrow? No, but you're right.
Mm-hmm.
And you go in with that mentality, and Rod Beck had that, where he went in and he said, "You know what? No one can touch me.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I go in. I got three guys to face. You're all going down."
Mm-hmm.
And that's how Rivera was, and that's how Morrow needs to be. And you're right. I haven't seen enough of him to really say that he's going to do that. But at the same time, if Madden's got that faith in him to say, you know what, we're going to give him the closer shot first, and this was a month and a half ago, before his spring training even got in, then you know that he's talked to him, you know that he sees something in him, and, you got to have faith in that. That, a manager, the guy who has to manage these people and has to know their mentality and their strengths and weaknesses, whether it's physical or anything else, already has that belief. That's really big. So, yeah, I'm ready to give him a chance, but I am not opposed to a closer by committee.
Really.
I'm just hoping it works out.
Hey, look, it worked for Andrew Miller. Remember, Andrew Miller was a guy who you really don't know where he was going to land, and all of a sudden he becomes one of the top relievers in the game. So, what? Some guys,
right.
we hear this all the time, man. Some guys are just late bloomers. You know what I mean? And we hear this all the time with draft picks that don't work out. Like, oh, he's a late bloomer. It took him a while. It took him another team to figure it out. That's just the way it happens with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And or even just some guys who, switch spots. They move over. Someone like Brian Dempster for the Cubs, who was a starter, and he just couldn't put it together. I mean, he just didn't have the endurance. I mean, a la Pedro Stroke, to go more than 4 to 5 innings a game. He just couldn't. He just got gassed early. And I mean, occasionally he did. He did go 6 innings, 7 innings. It does happen, but you get gassed too early, so they put him into a closing role, and he thrived.
Mm-hmm.
Best closer? Absolutely not. Dependable? Absolutely yes. And you're going to find that a lot. I mean, look at John Smoltz.
Mm-hmm.
This guy were the Hall of Fame last year, right?
Yeah.
And
I know it was.
You talked about a starter,
yeah,
and they asked him to go to the closer role, and he's going to, sit there, and he did an amazing job closing.
Mm-hmm.
So amazing that you want to go back to starting, and they didn't want to let him because he was so good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But some people are just gifted, and some people, I mean, you find your niche, because it's like I said, no one goes in wanting to be a reliever, but sometimes that's what you're good at.
Yeah.
If you want to have a career, you kind of got to deal with it.
Got to deal with it. Flipping things over to the other side of the ball, if you will, or as we look at the offense here. And as I'm here with Robert Villarreal of Baseball Essential on the Open Mic program, we're previewing the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs really bring back pretty much the same cast of characters that we've seen over the last couple of years. Rizzo, Bryant, obviously those two guys are the franchise faces. Schwarber, we'll get into him. Happ, now in his second year now in center field. Hayward now comes back second straight year with the Cubs now in right field. Really, basically the same team that we saw just a year ago on offensively. I think the big the question for me is this. Kyle Schwarber had such a down year last year. And the guy has, we both know this, the guy has so much power in that bat. Can crush it. He still hit 30 home runs last year, even though he hit 211. But, between hitting consistently, going up and down in the minor leagues last year, or, the year before that was injured. Can this be the year, Rob? Can this be the year that we finally see Kyle Schwarber put it all together? We know he has the power. We know he can. He's got the 30 home run, 100 RBI potential right there. But let's get rid of potential. Let's see him put the whole thing together here this year.
Yes, that's the easiest way to say it. Absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm.
he can put it together, and he's always had that potential. And he's one of those guys that the Cubs brass absolutely love.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like a son to Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer. I mean, and you're right. When you talk about the franchise, you say Bryant, you say Rizzo. I mean, they're the face of the organization. But I dare to say they would trade Anthony Rizzo before they do Kyle Schwarber.
Wow.
Kyle Schwarber.
Wow.
I mean, that's how much they love Schwarber.
Mm-hmm.
And not that they would ever trade Rizzo. It's just not going to happen.
Like but, people react like, "How dare you!"
Schwarber, yeah, I know. I get a lot of hate mail in a little while. So, no, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's got phenomenal power. He's got a really good swing, a clean swing. You worry about some of these larger hitters, power hitters. They get a little hitch in their swing to start second guessing themselves, if they can't sit there and try and club 45 a year. He swings really well. It's nice and it's crisp and it's smooth. And the best part is that he's lost some weight, which is fantastic. And I hate to say that that's always the story, because a lot of people talk about that this spring, but it's one of the bigger things about him, because it's really affected his game. Now his swing, I recently saw some video where they compared his swing last year to this year, and he's obviously thinner. I mean, from the side, you almost can't even tell it's him if you didn't see like the goatee or whatnot, or the shoulders, which are still stout. He's still got a large frame, but the swing is still there. It's still flawless and clean and smooth. But the best part is that he's faster now. I mean, he's still getting a couple strikeouts. He's still a little bit more of a free swinger, maybe as much as Baez. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with someone like a Schwarber or a Baez swinging at absolutely everything, because odds are they're going to club one or two or many. And the best part about Baez and even Schwarber now is that they've got the speed. Schwarber dropped enough poundage to where he's able to leg out a single in the infield now. He had a play a couple weeks ago where he got to first, and off of a throwing error, he ran around to home. And this is just a throwing error from shortstop to first. He made it from first to home plate. You never would have imagined that before this season. Mm-hmm. So it's a whole new dynamic. He's saying his hips feel better, his kneel feels better, because he's out there in the outfield and he's running around. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely going to help his coverage. His speed, obviously, there's eye work and things like that need to go into play defensively. But he's hitting 378, as I'm looking right now. 378 right now. And honestly, I couldn't be happier with his production. Yeah, no one wants a lot of strikeouts.
Right.
But there's always going to be give and take. Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone talks about Chris Bryant and all this kind of stuff. Oh, he won the NL MVP one season. Yeah, but his rookie year, he was 2 or 3 strikeouts shy of like 300. Mm-hmm. I mean, it happens. Guys swing. It happens. Everyone puts this really terrible hex on people who free swing or get strikeouts, but I don't care. I mean, if Schwarber can hit 35 home runs, I don't care if he gets 300 strikeouts.
You know what? You know what I like, though? You know what I like, though, is that the walks are at 7, and also the stolen bases are at 4, which, you mentioned that he did lose some weight, so he's a little bit faster this year. But the walks right now are at 7. So his on-base percentage right now is near 500. If he does that or comes close to doing that through the course of the season, then you'll take 150, 160 strikeouts. If he's going to walk like 90 times, 100 times, you'll take it. You'll gladly take 160 strikeouts.
That's phenomenal. That you can get that kind. I mean, that's a freaking gift.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about an easily, at least one more base run, because he plays, just as many games or almost as many games as just about anyone else on the team. Mm-hmm. Short of like Rizzo or Bryant. So, I mean, I think it was a little different last year because of the injury and they were working him in. If it weren't for that, I think he would have played a lot more games too. He definitely would have been third on time in. But you're absolutely right. They're going to give him the opportunity to play, and they absolutely should. And you're right. Even if it stays like a 1-2 ratio of walk to strikeout, or even if it's 1-3. Honestly, I couldn't be more. I shouldn't say pleased with that, but I will take it for what he is hitting now.
Absolutely.
For having that vision, for getting those couple of walks, it's worth it. Absolutely worth it to have someone like that, because already again they're talking about him leading off. I mean, shoot, he's got the speed for it now.
Yeah,
might as well.
Might as well try it. I mean, there's nothing if he's got the speed for it. If he's healthy now, I mean, you could try it. I mean, usually I like to have the prototype, and that's kind of like what Ian Happ is, the prototype to be your leadoff guy. But if Schwarber can be the leadoff guy and have that ability to get on base, if he's improved his approach, and not only is he stealing bases but walking and provides the pop, my goodness, that is one scary man to have at the top of the order to lead games off. I mean, here's a guy who can get on base, you can hit home run. I mean, we're talking about like George Springer-esque right there. A guy who can just do everything at the top of the order, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking more. Name's slipping me. Anderson for the Orioles.
Yeah, him too.
Was that 93, 95, something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Like he clubbed like 4
Brett Anderson
from the leadoff spot.
Brett Anderson, wasn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And 40 home runs from the leadoff spot. I mean, just kill it.
Mm-hmm.
Just ridiculous. Yeah. St. Cherry's thing. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
The only bad part is you don't have as many guys on the base pass. Well, who cares? He got on base when he didn't. When people weren't driving him in, he was driving himself in. Everybody wins.
Now here's going to be an interesting discussion, and this is for us like later in the year. But who's going to be can either Rizzo or Chris Bryant, can either one of them find a way to overtake Mr. Bryce Harper? I know Giancarlo won the MVP last year, but it's going to be the biggest contender obviously is Harper. Can one of them overtake Harper to be the league MVP? And it's tougher when you have two guys on the same team. I understand that, but you talk about two guys that are completely consistent. I mean, Rizzo, 32, 109, basically each of the last 2 years. Bryant had a bit of a down year in the RBIs, but still hit 29 home runs last year. I mean, either one of them could be is certainly in consideration even now for MVP candidacy. I would love to find. It would be awesome from the Cubs standpoint if one of those two guys can get the award this year. It really would be.
It would, and rumor control. What if next year all three of them are on the same team?
Whoa! Watch out, Yankees.
Yeah, that's right. But here's the hoping. Come on, 2019.
There's your World Series right there, folks. Cubs and Yankees. Boom, boom, boom. Home runs all over the place.
Right. And absolutely. But that's the thing. Bryant's already been there. He does have an MVP. I think Rizzo can get one, too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's a lot harder sometimes because, you're not only going to say, like, how did he do it for his team? And that's another hard thing, just like you said, where you have multiple guys who are doing good because Baez is going to get the chance to start now, so he's going to be doing some really good hitting. Contreras has just been lighting it up over the spring. I mean, his swing is just beautiful this year. Not that it wasn't last year, but, I mean, he has really given us some authority on that backswing, and it's fantastic. So, and that's kind of the bad part, too. You got that embarrassment of riches, and you got to kind of spread the wealth. It's like, well, you're only going to get, we'll just say, 800 runs in a year. Well, great. Well, that's only going to be spread out between 25 guys, And that's the bad part. Like you said, it's like Bryant had a down year on RBIs, but he didn't have a bad year.
Yeah.
Did he as good as Giancarlo? No. But, at the time, Giancarlo was all the Marlins really had besides Yelich, and now they don't have either one. But at the same time, they also don't have to compete with Giancarlo for MVP this year either.
No.
But no, it's definitely possible. It's just hard with a lot of the guys in there, because look at all the young guys on the Dodgers now. I mean, the Dodgers, same way. They have 2-3 guys in that everyday lineup that are already potential MVP candidates. Like, you talk about, who's going to be, you talk about Bryant, you talk about Harper, but you've got a couple guys out there in LA that can do that as well.
Mm-hmm. Bellinger.
It's hard to roll around, but I think that they can pull it out. But I mean, I would rather see a World Series. I think it'd be great to get, to have another NL MVP or Gold Gloves. All that extra stuff is great. But and I say this when it comes to football too. I'm a Bears fan.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, oh, well, at least they beat the Packers. No, that's not how it should work. I will take 2 losses to the Packers every year for the rest of my life if the Bears win the Super Bowl.
Right.
It's like, but don't you want to win the Packers? Beat the Packers? No, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. 14-2 and a Super Bowl win, great.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
So MVPs are great. Individual awards are great, but I would, and I hope that they do, but I would rather see the team win. In my personal opinion, is it possible? Yes, but like you said, I think it's a lot harder when you have guys, like basically Rizzo competing with Bryant for who's the better guy. On top of the fact that hopefully Russell can bring his numbers back up to his 2016, and now you get Baez a full-time slot at second base, so that's going to take away from them too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to only add to the offense, but you can't. Everyone can't drive in everyone every inning.
Yeah.
So
the one position that's going to be interesting to watch this year is going to be, at least to me right now, is going to be Hayward in right field, because I know his spring stats, and I know it's spring stats. He hasn't hit all that well in spring, but he is that veteran guy, and of course, when you got those veteran guys, he is 28, so he's not old, but he's that veteran guy. Doesn't hit for a high average, and teams always look, well, who can we have down on the farm that's younger? I mean, is there anybody that you think, if the Cubs ever wanted to, not saying they're going to, if they ever wanted to, let's say, move from Hayward, is there someone out in the minor leagues that they like a lot right now? Someone that is really blowing things up in spring training right now, do you think?
Nope.
No. Easy answer.
No. That's another easy answer. No. Unfortunately, the Cubs really put all their eggs in a basket, when they were moving some guys around, whether they went to New York or you look at even on the south side of Chicago where they have Eloy Jimenez now, who will be great, who was once upon a time a Cub, or guys like Dylan Cease also on the south side now, a good pitching prospect. I mean, your top 5 guys for the Cubs, guys like Alberto De La Cruz, Little Lang, they're all super minor league guys. They're all single A, high single A, maybe double A. I mean, all these guys were, rookie league, low single A, high single A last year. And I don't think, and you definitely got a chance, like a right-handed pitcher, Jose Albertos. He's going to be great. He's going to be fantastic, and probably within 2 years he will be with the Major League club, maybe 3. Mm-hmm. And he's still young too. I think he's only 19.
Yeah.
I'd have to look, but I want to say I think he was last year. He was only like 18 years old. But still very young, still very unpolished. But that's the problem, is that a lot of these guys are young and they're kind of back to where they were the pre-Bryant era, if you want to call it that, to where they had vets, but then you didn't have a lot of guys. Like, they started stocking up, and you didn't really have everyone who was ready to just jump into the majors. The Cubs are pretty set as far as this is going to be our lineup. These are our backups. We have Caratini at catcher. We have La Stella. We have Zobrist, or on the pitching side, whether it's Dunsing or Alvarez or whoever it is like we pretty much got our lineup. We know who's going to be here, and what they have prospect-wise is just going to have to wait a while.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're just going to have to rebuild, and I shouldn't say that. They're already rebuilding, but they're just going to have to train them and bring them up just like they did a couple years ago with, Russell and Bryant and Baez and all these other guys who were brought up, Schwarber, Almora. It really is the same situation they were in about 5 years ago. They're right back to it, but on the good side is that they are right back to it.
Yeah.
So that in 3 or 4 years, we're talking the exact same way. Just your major league lineup set, your minor league prospects are set. It's just an embarrassment of riches. And that's the best part about this system that Jed Hoyer and Theo Epstein and Joe Madden went in on.
Mm-hmm.
They're just constantly restocking, refilling, so that when you do lose someone who was fantastic and who had a Cy Young like Jake Arrietta,
Mm-hmm.
we can replace him. We pick up a free agent. We can bring up a prospect. Here we go.
Yeah.
And that is exactly how a championship caliber team is run. And, no matter what the Astros say, whether they're, hey, we're not the Cubs, we're going to win again, you know what, the Cubs are going to be right there in it. Because that's the goal. I mean, are you going to win it every year? No, that's just not how baseball works. No one's the Yankees anymore.
No.
But not even the Yankees.
Not even the Yankees are the Yankees anymore. Yeah.
What's that?
I said, yeah. I mean, not even the Yankees are the Yankees anymore. I mean, you mentioned. You mentioned restocking players. Remember, even just a couple of years ago, they had Starlin Castro there over at second base with the Cubs, and they ship him out. Baez comes up, and now is the everyday second. You have Baez and Russell there in the middle of the infield. Those guys aren't going anywhere. I mean, the Cubs are just a well-oiled machine. I mean, you're absolutely right. They're a well-oiled machine going into the year. Are there concerns? There's always concerns. You have 30 teams. You're always going to have some weaknesses. I mean, bullpen we already talked about being something to watch this year going into the season. But I look at that division, and to me, this is still the top team. And I know Milwaukee added a lot of pieces, getting Yelich, getting Lorenzo Cain. Certainly makes things look a little bit more interesting for them. Adding those two guys to the mix of Braun and Thames. But the thing with Milwaukee that bothers me is I just don't trust their starting pitching at all. You're talking about like Zach Davies and Julius Chassin, Chase Anderson. I don't know. I mean, that's. I mean, if you put that pound for pound against the Cubs, I think the Cubs win at least 2 out of 3 all the time. So, to me, Milwaukee's improved. I don't think their rotation's improved enough. The Cardinals shipped a lot of guys out. They're trying to bring in some young guys up now. They still got some veteran guys there like Molina and Wainwright now at the end of their careers. But they're kind of retooling right now. Pittsburgh's doing a full retool. Cincy's still Cincinnati, still not there yet. They're still waiting. They're still trying to figure it out over there in Cincinnati. But I think Milwaukee probably the closest competition right now. But I just think the Cubs right at this moment are still the best team out of the Central in the National League.
Hardly agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that like you said, the Brewers are going to surprise a lot of people. You're right. The pitching is still not there. They still have a lot of work to go, but at least they've got the bats pretty set.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a phenomenal lineup, but I think their outfield is really good. And I don't know about the whole thing. The contract I don't want to say old, but he's kind of hitting his peak, and I think they gave him too long of a contract for kind of hitting that 31 or 32. Mm-hmm. And I mean, for that kind of age to have that that length of a contract, I don't know if that's going to pay off in the end. Well, it will for him, but I think that they will be the surprise team. They are going to win a couple more games. Cardinals are always tough no matter what, but you're right. I mean, when since he's just not getting it, and then Pittsburgh, they are going to start rebuilding themselves. You ship off your all-star center fielder, which a lot of people, and I don't want to be sacrilegious towards the Cubs as a Cubs fan because everyone, talks about, hey, we're terrible on offense. He's the best defender, but I really think that, until that particular move, I think Pittsburgh had the best defensive outfielder in the NL Central. Mm-hmm. But overall, I don't see a lot of competition for the Cubs right now. I think it'll still be a hard-fought season. Obviously, it's still long. It's still 162 games. Mm-hmm. Something can happen, and maybe we'll be close down the stretch. But I don't see the Cubs sitting there going up 18 games going into the playoffs like they did when they won the World Series. But I also don't see anyone really making a move. And, I can't believe the Cubs are down 10 games with 30 left. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. I think... overall, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Finish your thought. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say overall, I just don't think that there's any stout competition, at least yet, for the Cubs.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I was just going to piggyback off of your points. And, I do think that maybe the longer off season, not getting to the World Series last year, maybe just adds a little more fuel to the fire for the Cubs this year. I think it's certainly going to help get them back to where they want to be. They certainly feel that they are a World Series team, and I look at them; they are a World Series team. The National League, I think that's the case all throughout baseball right now. We all know who the big teams are. We know Houston is. We know the Yankees are. We know you want to say Cleveland out there in the American League Central, Chicago, the Cubs, the Nationals, the Dodgers. Those are all the big teams. We could probably put in permanent ink right now. Those 6 teams will be in the playoffs. Everybody else is just kind of scrambling right now for a wild card, whether the Giants or the Mets or whoever, the Brewers, kind of scrambling for wild cards. So to me, it's all about positioning. If you're the Cubs, it's about positioning yourself to try to get that top seed. And I know it gets overplayed in the other sports, especially in football and basketball. We got to be the number 1 seed. Got to be number 1. I think Virginia's kind of wondering about being number 1 right now. I wonder. But I had to do it. But you get the point. But if the Cubs want to get back, they obviously have to find a way to get past the Dodgers. That's where I'm going with this one, and try to find a way to capture the flag, if you will, and try to get that extra game in Wrigley Field compared to Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, it's a hard road, like you said. I mean, you've got those couple teams that you're going to have to beat in the regular season, obviously, and that you're going to face in the playoffs, and that's obviously in the NL. It's going to be the Dodgers and it's going to be the Nats. And like I was saying, I mean the Dodgers. I mean, and not to underplay how the Nats are, because the Nats are good, but the Nats aren't the Dodgers, and they don't have the lineup that the Dodgers do, where they do have 2 or 3 guys that should absolutely before today be on the top 10 list of NL MVP candidates. And that's really hard to face, because they're going to come up day in, day out, and they are just going to murder pitchers. It's going to happen. And it's going to be hard fought. I don't know. I mean, the Giants have played hard. I've seen the Nats play hard. I would rather play anyone but the Dodgers this year. Because, man, I just I love the Cubs. I'm a Cubs fan, but like I said, as a writer outside looking in, it's really hard to pick the Cubs over the Dodgers with how well the Dodgers played, with how well they played last year. I don't know. I mean, at the same time, we're just talking NL. If we're talking going to the series, Houston's going to be stacked again. They're going to be fantastic.
Right.
Altuve is just, 5'8" god. But I think that, when it comes to the NL, I want to talk about those 3 teams. And obviously, I want to say the Cubs are on top and whatnot as a fan, but as a writer, I think that the NL goes through LA. It really does. It doesn't matter the pitching. It doesn't matter who they've lost or whatnot. When you want to talk about Darvish or anything, LA has such a great hitting lineup, and they have such great defensive fielding that it's one of those rare teams that even when you have some shaky pitching, that doesn't matter. Because even with the Cubs, they had shaky pitching last year, and they hurt. They fumbled. They were hurting all over. But when it comes to the Dodgers, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. And,
although I think their pitching's still going to be good.
Yeah, it's still going to be good. I mean, the team with the most pressure, though, coming in is going to be Washington, because they have to do it this year. I mean, they got Harper leaving at the end of the year. They got Daniel Murphy at the end of his contract this year. This is like now or never for the Washington Nationals. I mean, the Cubs and the Dodgers have already climbed the mountain. And, of course, when the Cubs, they've climbed the mountain and of course, won the World Series a couple of years ago. So for the Washington Nationals, it's now or never for that team. I mean, you talk about someone who's under a lot of pressure. They aren't. I mean, if you get the Nationals down in a situation where they're, down in a series best of 5 in the divisional series 2-2, and They got to find a way to win. I don't, are they going to choke up on the bats a little bit over there? NLCS against either one of these two teams. Cubs are now against the Cubs or the Dodgers. Down 3-2 in the series. They're going to choke up on the bat. That's the team to really pay attention to because they love blowing things up there in DC with coaches and general managers and everything else. And now they're going to lose Bryce Harper at the end of the year. So that team, I have a bit of my thumb on right now, seeing what's going to happen with them.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting because Daniel Murphy. You mentioned him. I haven't mentioned him at all in this call, but always like my 2 or 3 dark horse list for MVP because if he turns it on, he can turn it on. And when you talk about having to face teams like the Cubs or whatnot, I don't have the numbers in front of you, and I swear all things only like Murph's like career batting average against the Cubs is high 3s or low 4s, just something just absolutely sickening. He hits everything, and I don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Just against the Cubs, I can't understand. He's doing that when he was at the Mets, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. He's good. I don't know if he's going to get a huge contract again. I don't know where he's going to go at the end of the season, or anything of that nature. Because he's kind of, again, God, I really hate saying guys are getting old because they're all younger than me.
Yeah.
But it's he's getting up there, and he may not get that super duper contract again. But he will go sort. But you're absolutely right. When it comes down to it, you've also got your pitching staff. You've got Strasburg, you got Max, you got these guys who are, again, just like Danny's, like they're not over the hill yet. They're not on the downslope of their career by any means, but they're becoming aged.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen. You only have this window, and you can see that a lot in baseball where the age before your prime was like 26 to 31, 27 to 32. Now people are looking at your prime like 22 to 27. And once you hit that 28, 29, you're creeping up on 30, you almost looked at as over the hill nowadays in baseball. Just look at the free agency this year.
Mm-hmm.
All of these fantastic, stellar, talented players who can still play, at least 85 to 90% of their potential.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Maybe they're not, 100%. Maybe they're not at their peak. Maybe they're a little bit on the downslope, but just barely on the downslope, if at all.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still not getting signed because they'd rather sign these guys who are 22, 25, have this potential, this longevity, and will probably play a lot longer. And, when you see that slide, then you know what, it's going to affect these other guys too, like the pitching staff and things like that. So you're absolutely right. The Nationals, they need to put their foot on the pedal. They really need to gas it up, and they need to hit it hard this season because you're right. If it doesn't happen this year, I don't know when, if ever.
Yeah, it's now or never.
It'll be a very long time.
It really is. And going into the season, man, I'm looking forward to this. I cannot wait. The Cubs are going to be, again, a force in the National League. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch baseball this year. There's going to be a lot of competitive teams in the NL. I really think it's going to be a competitive league this year, so I'm really looking forward to it, man.
I am as well, my friend. I am as well.
All right. Rob, I want to thank you so much, man, for coming aboard. As always, we'll do this again very, very soon, as you know. All right, man?
I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Yep.
Okay, bye-bye. Folks, Robert Villarreal of the Baseball Essential joining us again to talk the Cubs, as we do on a regular basis. We'll be back next time, folks, and we'll keep the conga line moving. We are approaching the end of spring training. We've still got the Yankees and the Mets to hit up and preview as well. Those are coming in a couple of days. But before I go, I just want to thank, last time I checked anyway, I want to thank everyone for blowing up that Jet video. Because that thing, last I checked, was over 1,700 views. Thank you. Thank you for, whether you liked it, whether you hated it, I don't care. Because the fact is that you people are tuning in and listening and enjoying it. You know what? That's great. I'm really happy for that. And I hope you guys enjoy this, and hope you guys enjoy the channel here on the Sports Talk Nation. Remember to like and subscribe right here on the Sports Talk Nation here on YouTube. And also follow us on the social media at Open Mic NJ on Twitter and Facebook.com/Open Mic Program. For Robert Villarreal, I'm Michael Cohen. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Sports Talk Nation.